Let's get ready to rumble!
Yes, Boxingites. Let's get on with this review, yeah? But before we do, I just want to say 1CWA. He done a video about Carlos Molina. And I just want to back up a couple of his points and throw my own little shit into the mix. Answer me this, yeah? If this guy can outbox you, for the majority of the duration of the 12 rounds, why are you writing comments and videos saying, oh, it's a shame he wasn't more aggressive? Oh, it's a shame that he didn't have a bigger punch. What you were saying makes no sense at all. He's winning the rounds. Why does he need to hit harder? It's boxing. He doesn't have to murder people. He has to beat them. Why does he have to be more aggressive? If he's outscoring you, if he's hitting and not getting hit, if he's implementing the nucleus of the sweet science, why do you keep writing these things? Oh, it's a shame he's not more aggressive. Oh, it's a shame he doesn't punch harder. How hard do you want him to punch? He punches how he punches. And it's good enough for him to outbox the majority of the opponents he faces, even though he's got jerked a couple of times. And the thing is, most boxing fans, especially in the YouTube community, you know, we always go on like, we're the down-to-earth boxing fans, we're raging against the machine. Just like 1CWA said. And then when fighters like Molina are not getting their just rewards for what they're doing in the ring, and even when they're winning decisions, you guys are saying, you know, shame he can't punch harder. And the thing is, boxing just follows nature. More than likely, if you're a pure boxer, nature is not going to give you the punch of a slugger like Mike Tyson and George Foreman. And more than likely, if you're a elite slugger or an elite puncher like Mike Tyson and like George Foreman, nature is not going to give you the boxing ability or the footwork of a Ray Leonard or a Sugar Ray Robinson. And yeah, there are some people who can box, slug and punch. Of course there are. But for the most part, you're not going to get guys who can throw nuclear bombs like Ernie Shavers and then dance around the ring like the 60s version of Ali. And you know why that is? It's because there'll be a murder every time he goes into the ring. Or imagine Andre Ward with Julian Jackson's power. I wouldn't go in the ring with him. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. Maybe you might want to go in there. I ain't going in the ring with him. So it is what it is. He doesn't need to punch harder. What he's doing is working. Now, if they added an extra criteria in how to score fights, and that was entertainment factor or excitement factor, then you'd have more of an argument to say he needs to punch harder, he needs to be more aggressive. But that's not how boxing works. Boxing is based on scoring more punches than your opponent and not getting hit. Boxing is not a complex sport. Boxing is basic. You have two primary weapons, and that's your hands. Yeah? Now, if we're going to talk about doing the Ali shuffle, if we're going to talk about shoulder rolls, Philly shells, hooking off the jab, yeah, there are complex moves that come into play. If we're going to talk about coaching, training methods, diet, conditioning, developing strategies, yeah, these are complex issues. But the nucleus of boxing is very basic. It's actually one of the most fundamental and primary sports that we have. It's like sometimes you'll see a girl on the road and she just looks good. And then you'll always get some clown who picks out some stupid fault in her. Oh, I can see a little scuff in the heel of her shoe. Oh, she's got a little blemish on her calf. You know what I mean? And shit like, and he probably hasn't even got a girl. You know what I mean? But he's always he's got to find something extra. Stop making things more complex than what they are. You know what I mean? If you want to argue for an extra criteria in scoring boxing, then it's a different topic. But you keep saying that you're a purist. If you're a purist, then let the purist boxer breathe. Because if you was to get every world-class boxer and make them all aggressive, all have good footwork, all have great hand speed, all be able to slug, make all of them be able to implement great defense, and all be able to punch really hard, and all have granite chins, do you know what you get? Boring fights. Because they'll be cancelling each other out. That's why boxing is a great sport. You have boxers, pure boxers, you have pure sluggers, you have boxer punchers. And regardless of what your preference is, fair is fair. If they've set out and achieved their goals to outscore their opponent, they should get their just due. And you should give it to them. If not, then I don't want to hear you complain about alphabet bodies doing shady shit with the scoring, television networks favoring certain fighters, or drug cheats. I don't want to hear it no more. Your argument now becomes irrelevant, in my mind at least. But I guess this is going way over your head. Your head's probably hurting now. Go take an afternoon nap and try and absorb some of it. Let's move on. It seems that the likes of Nicola Adams, Anthony Joshua and Luke Campbell are in no hurry to enter the professional ranks. They seem to have certain incentives to stick around another 4 years, which will be the Brazilian Olympics, and Team GB seem keen to keep the team together. Also, the WSB is going to make inroads into Britain. If you don't know what that is the acronym for the World Series of Boxing. That's where amateurs get rid of the headgear and the vests, and they basically fight in a professional format while retaining their amateur status. This will be good for the UK, in my opinion, in transitioning our elite amateurs into the professional game.
Winning the gold medal at Olympic Games, you've really got the amateur pedigree sewn into you. Even you came back, you looked back and thought, wow, you know, the difference between the professional game and the amateur game is even greater than maybe even you thought.
The readers' poll, we are asked, what should Olympic gold medal winner at super heavyweight Anthony Joshua do next? 37% say stay amateur and 63% say turn professional. Mark Bennington, he says stay amateur, gain more experience. The less pressure under the spotlight, he'll have more time to consider his options. Reggie Hagland, he says he's won ABA titles, multi-nation titles, a silver medal at world championship level, the Olympic gold medal. Why wait around? Just go. Rob Wildman, he says turn pro and earn as much as you can. He is hot property at the moment and that won't last forever. Ride the wave. Stuart Fraser, he says stay amateur. He's just a baby in heavyweight terms. With his charisma and size, he will be marketable at any time he decides to turn pro, so there's no need to rush. Boxing Beats and Rhymes says, well, it's up to Anthony. It depends what his ambition level is. In the panel this week, the question is asked, who was the star of the Olympic boxing tournament? Austin Trout says Clarissa Shields and Ireland's Katie Taylor. And as far as the men go, he liked Anthony Joshua. Richie Woodall says Luke Campbell stood out because he stuck to the game plan and he stuck to the basics. Paulie Malignaggi, he liked Anthony Joshua and Luke Campbell. He also liked Roniel Iglesias and Vasyl Lomachenko. Mark Tibbs, he liked Fred Evans and Anthony Joshua. Were the IBF right to retain Lamont Peterson as their light welterweight champion? Austin Trout says, Lamont doesn't strike me as a cheat, and if the evidence suggests that he wasn't cheating, then he agrees with the decision. Richie Woodall says he's speechless, and he's basically saying this is a way to swerve around the drugs issue without being penalized. Paulie Malignaggi, he says it's a bit surprising, but he likes Lamont and he hopes that he can come back and prove himself clean. Mark Tibbs says his gut feeling is that it's not the right decision. He says Lamont has been caught and he is now trying to find an excuse to cover himself. Boxing Beats and Rhymes says he didn't watch much of the boxing tournaments in the Olympics, but I did think the guy who Anthony Joshua beat, the Cuban guy, was very skillful from what I saw, and I didn't see much of it, to be honest. I think he was Felix Savon's nephew, and he looked good. He looked good. Anthony Joshua is strong and he's focused. I was impressed with that. You know what I mean? As for Lamont Peterson, check the description box, and I'm going to drop the video that I dropped. I made this video way before the IBF made this decision, and I was basically accused of being a crackpot for making the video, but I made the video based on research from credible people. That's all I did. You know what I mean? I wasn't inventing shit. You see, the thing with a lot of people in the world when they see injustices, they argue with their emotion, and you can't do that. You have to break down the components of the machine for what it is, not for what you want it to be. So check the description box and the videos down there. So let's do some letters and tweets. The letter of the week is titled Investigate the Scoring by Dan Cotter. He points out Errol Spence's experience in the Olympics, of how flawed the scoring system is, and dare he say the word corrupt. Dan feels that the scoring in amateur boxing is just as big a problem as drugs are in the sport as well. And I'd 100% concur with his assessment. Simon Collins, he says, in reply to Stuart Greenberg's July the 26th letter, Khan did it the hard way. Regarding Amir Khan still being world champion if he had stayed with Frank Warren, as if he would have been protected, surely a true world champion would not want to be protected. Being a champion is about facing the best opposition, or at least should be. Protecting a fighter on the way up is fair enough, but not when you're at elite level. And this is where Khan undoubtedly sees himself. With a challenge comes a meaningful fight, so boxing fans also benefit. Jamie Ingleby, he says, take note, US boxing experts. Team GB is progressing well, while Team US is all gone. Please stop overplaying your amateur setup. Gone are the days of Montreal. I'm not saying Team GB is all powerful. We don't crash talk other nations. There is no real powerhouse in amateur boxing at the moment. Cuba still produces excellent and very talented boxers who are very exciting to watch. The former Soviet Union countries are all technically excellent, and Brazil's boxers have been very exciting. Sounds like he was trash talking just a little bit. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't blame him. You know what I mean? What do they sing on the football terraces? Sing while you're winning. You know what I mean? And Britain should enjoy this purple patch of amateur boxing. We should embrace that. But don't sleep. Do not get complacent and keep building. That's what I'll say. Tim Farmer seems like he can't give up the ghost. He says, no praise for Hay and Chisora. He points out that Boxing News readers have written in to praise David Hay and Derek Chisora on how wonderful that their debacle finished with a handshake and everybody was best of friends. Tim asserts that this fight was totally unmarketable before the unsavory antics in Germany. He also points out how Hay, Chisora, Frank Warren and Adam Booth showed a total disregard to the British Boxing Board of Control. Well, Tim, I'm sorry. But even if David Hay and Derek Chisora didn't have that fight in the press conference in Munich, it would have still been a big money spinning fight. Because what you have to realize is David Hay was the undisputed cruiserweight champion. He held all the belts that mattered. He was also a former WBA heavyweight champion. He's a KO puncher. Derek Chisora, despite his limited experience as a boxer, went the distance with Vitaly Klitschko and gave him his hardest fight for years. So, okay, I'll grant you it wouldn't have been the success that it was without the brawl in Germany. But it would have still been a good matchup. And there would have been needle between them anyway. Because both guys are characters. They're characters. I don't want to divert away from the letters too much, but I've got to stick on this point. About 2 months ago, I asked the question, has anybody seen the DVD documentary of the Klitschkos yet? I asked the question back then before it came out. And I'm asking it 2 months later, has anybody seen it? Because I haven't seen it yet. And I haven't seen nobody make no videos about it on YouTube. They made videos about Tyson's documentary. They have no swag. Like my brethren and sistren from the African American persuasion would say. He has no swag. And look, all jokes aside, yeah? Imagine when somebody like Mike Tyson was champion. Or Riddick Bowe. And let's say they was the super WBA heavyweight champion. Not the interim whatever WBA like Povetkin. You think they'd just allow Povetkin to parade around like he's some No, they'd be calling him and say, yo, who is this clown, man? I'm the super champion. Take off that toy belt before I come around your yard and smack you up. And you're sneak. That's what they would have come around. But the Klitschkos are allowing Povetkin to walk around with his belt and they're not saying nothing. Yeah? Vladimir should have said something by now. Yeah? Boxing isn't like team sports with league tables where you have to face this opponent, that opponent, because that's how the league is structured. No. Boxing needs the governing boards to make the mandatories, and apart from that, you have to call motherfuckers out. And the Klitschkos do not do that. They do not do that. You know? Vladimir chose to fight Tony Thompson again, somebody who's KO'd and somebody who just isn't that good. In my opinion, I've heard people say that he's this technical fighter. I think they're reaching too far saying that. Out of curiosity, I searched YouTube for Manuel Char. And I've actually seen him fight. I didn't realise. He actually fought Danny Williams. And I watched the fight again. And Danny was landing some shit on the guy. It was a bullshit stoppage. It was a bullshit stoppage. And Danny had a chance of knocking him out if that fight had carried on. And Danny was teeing up on the guy. He's too easy to hit. But he might pull up a Chisora and give Vitaly a hard fight. Who knows? But to me, one of them needs to clean up Povetkin. No? I mean, Lennox Lewis wasn't a trash talker. That wasn't his MO. But even he would have said something about Povetkin. David Haye and Derek Chisora was just good box office. Can't say no more than that, and you can't hate on that either. Gordon Burton, he writes a good letter, very challenging letter. He writes in reply to Mr. Ingleby, who wrote in the August the 2nd issue about the virtues of Rubin Hurricane Carter. And Mr. Burton wants to refute Mr. Ingleby's claim that Hurricane Carter was all that. He points out the fighters that Carter could not KO, like Wilbert McClure, Luis Rodriguez, George Benton. Well, come on, you can't put George Benton in. George Benton was a quality fighter. He talks about Britain's Harry Scott, how he was lucky to lose to Hurricane Carter on a cut. And I think Scott beat Carter in the second fight on points. He also points out that Joey Giardello unanimously outpointed Carter. Come on again. Joey Giardello was an elite fighter in his day. Just because the man can't beat elite fighters, it doesn't mean that he's rubbish. It's a good letter, regardless though. He goes on to talk about Dick Tiger, who totally outclassed the Hurricane. He talks about Holly Mims, another fighter that the Hurricane couldn't KO. Jose Gonzalez stopped Carter on cuts. Okay, I didn't even realize Carter was ever stopped. And then he makes one of them comments that really annoys me. He did stop Emil Griffiths in a round, but if he didn't, Emil Griffiths would have beat him. These kind of comments just drive me crazy. You know what I mean? The fact that Carter did stop Griffiths in a round is the only point. Carter landed one of his haymakers before Griffiths could get into his stride. That's what punchers are supposed to do. They're not supposed to let boxers get into their stride. That's why they're punchers. That's why they're titled that. He finishes the letter by saying, Carter was an exciting middleweight contender, but not a great fighter. Okay, I'm not going to argue with that. I'm not even going to argue with that. Somebody named T. Tisdale from Liverpool, he says, let's hear it for the girls. Natasha Jonas and Katie Taylor. What a fight. Full marks to both boxers and a credit to all boxers for their sportsmanship and skill. Ian Owen says, Amir Khan should take up the offer from Enzo Calzaghe to be his trainer. Yeah? Who else has Enzo Calzaghe trained to be a decent fighter apart from Joe? Yeah, he's had a couple of people in his stable. Enzo Macronelli, Bradley Price, I think Gavin Reese, and a couple more, but he's no Eddie Futch. Let's put it that way. Let's just put it that way. He goes on to say that Freddie Roach has admitted that he can never fully commit to Amir. And he agrees with the article on the Boxing News website saying that Top Rank should cash in on Manny Pacquiao and make the fight with Floyd before Manny's stock plummets to levels that can't get any lower. You know what I mean? How low can you go? Base! The fight would make millions, making Aaron Mayweather and Pacquiao rich beyond dreams. And at the age of 80, Bob may only have a few more world title fights left. His stepson, Todd Dubois, has experience, but it will take him years to achieve what his stepdad has achieved. We go to the boxing tweets. At Thomas Stalker 1, he's absolutely heartbroken. The judges have wrecked my life. From the bottom of my heart, I won that fight and there's nothing I can do about it. Thomas Stalker, who's adamant that he should have been awarded the decision in his Olympic quarter final. At Anthony Ogogo, he's very proud of Team GB. Anthony took a bronze medal from out of the Olympics. At Audley Harrison, he bigs up Fred Evans for his silver medal and says it's a tremendous achievement. At Luke 11 Campbell, he says he's so proud to be British. I can't thank you all enough for your support. It means the world to me. Luke won the gold medal. At Nicola Adams 2012, she says, thank you for your support. I still can't believe what I've achieved, but I know I couldn't have done it without you all. Nicola won the gold medal. At Steve Max Boxing, he says, with Anthony Joshua's gold medal, I like the future of the British heavyweight scene much better than the American. That's Steve Kim, who is saying Britain's heavyweight division is in rude health. At Sky, Glenn McCrory. Glenn McCrory says, well done GB Boxing, a great success. A professional operation takes a pro. Robert McCracken take a bow. The readers' poll is asking, what should Olympic gold medal winner Anthony Joshua do next? 37% says he should stay amateur and 63% says he should turn pro. Mark Bebbington, he says, stay amateur, gain more experience with less pressure and not so much time under the spotlight. He will have more time to consider his options. Reggie Hagland, he says, Anthony has won the ABA title, multi-nations, world championship silver, and now the Olympic gold. He should cash in and turn pro now. Rob Wildman, he says, turn pro and earn as much money as possible. He is hot property, but that will not last forever. Ride the wave. Stuart Fraser, he says, stay amateur. He is just a baby in heavyweight terms, and with the charisma and size he has, he will be marketable at any time that he decides to turn pro. Boxing Beats and Rhymes is of the opinion that he should do whatever his heart tells him to, and his personal ambition level should make his decision, you know? And he's probably coming into boxing at a time where he could probably make himself financially secure without turning pro. There wasn't as much hype around amateur boxing in the UK 4 years ago when James DeGale won his gold medal at Beijing. So Anthony Joshua should take advantage of that.
The count starts. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's it.
The 10 count this week is discussing American Olympic teams. Matt Christie says, America hasn't always been this bad at amateur boxing. We're really sticking the boot in this week to American amateur boxing, you know what I mean? At number 1, we have the Los Angeles team from 1984. Pernell Whitaker, Evander Holyfield, Mark Breland, Meldrick Taylor, Virgil Hill, Frank Tate, Tyrrell Biggs, Paul Gonzalez, Henry Tillman, Jerry Page, Steve McCrory, all got medals in California. 6 of whom went on to be world champions at professional level. Wow. That's Matt Christie writing wow, but I'm seconding that wow too. At number 2, Montreal 1976. Watch these games on YouTube and it's hard not to be dazzled by some of the skill on display. Sugar Ray Leonard glittered for the first time. His rapier punches making him the light welterweight gold medalist. Michael and Leon Spinks, Howard Davis Jr., and Leo Randolph also topped the podium too. At number 3, we have Seoul 1988. The aftershock of Roy Jones Jr. and that infamous silver still rumbles today. But this team was special. Michael Carbajal, Riddick Bowe, Ray Mercer, Kennedy McKinney all added professional world titles to their medals. Andrew Maynard claimed gold medal in Seoul but struggled to make an impact as a pro. At number 4, we have Rome 1960. Cassius Clay, I don't like that name. Muhammad Ali was one of the 3 American winners. His success remains one of the most iconic moments in Olympic history. At number 5, Helsinki 1952. The team flew back from the Finnish capital with 5 golds. 4 years later, Floyd Patterson became the youngest heavyweight champion in history, a record that stood for 30 years. until Mike Tyson knocked Trevor Berbick silly. I didn't say that. Matt Christie said that. He's obviously in a devilish, mischievous kind of mood. You know what I mean? At number 6, St. Louis, 1964. The Hall of 16 medals should be put into perspective by the lack of countries who took part and the amount of American competitors in each weight class. For example, at lightweight, welterweight, and heavyweight, the US claimed gold, silver, and bronze. That is dread. Number 7, Mexico City, 1968. Big George Foreman and his tiny American flag was the image of the games, but his star prize was just one of the 7 medals claimed in Japan. Now, you see, you're just bugging my head up. What's Japan got to do with anything? It says Mexico City, 1968. And I'm positive that George won that medal in Mexico. I'm going to have to Google that and then come back later on that one. Number 8, Barcelona, 1992. The team was thought to have underachieved at the time, but the success and popularity of Oscar de la Hoya, who went on to enjoy big things as a professional, put all of that into perspective. Chris Bird and Tim Austin also excelled as pros. Tim Austin was a really good fighter, one of them forgotten fighters. At number 9, we have Atlanta, 1996. Although only David Reed won a gold medal, the team catapulted Floyd Mayweather, Antonio Tarver, Fernando Vargas, and David Diaz into the spotlight of professional boxing. At number 10, we have Los Angeles, 1932. The team landed 5 trophies. Gold winners were Edwin Flynn and Carmen Barth. They both failed to replicate their success in the professional ranks, but one Louis Siaka, who notched a bronze at flyweight, reigned as the world bantamweight boss in a solid era. We go to the hit and the miss section. Team GB Boxing. Every home advantage can't disguise the fact that 5 Olympic medals, 3 of which were gold, is a super result. At number 2, Joe Bugner. The Hungarian-born Brit gets more recognition as his adopted homeland inducts him into their Hall of Fame, which would be Australia, obviously. At number 3, Tony Bellew, free to pursue his career after the British Board of Control ruled in his favour in regards to his dispute with Frank Warren. At number 4, Lovamore Endo. The former IBF light welterweight champion gets his first win since September 2010, beating fellow veteran Gary St. Clair in Australia. And in the miss section, we have Adonis Stevenson coming in at number 4. The big puncher was predicting a knockout against Donovan George, but an injury to his hand forced him out of his IBF super middleweight eliminator. At number 3, we have French boxing. Only 5 representatives, all men, and not 1 medal. At number 2, we have Sergio Mora. A second loss to Brian Vera cannot cover up the fact that his days of being a contender are surely over. And at number 1, the IBF, who maintained Lamont Peterson as its light welterweight champion, even though he admitted to taking a banned substance. At the Audley Harrison David Price press conference, all I can say is David Price probably made the most worthy contribution to the proceedings. After Audley Harrison once again repeated stories about his gold medal win. To win the gold medal was amazing. It was out of this world, he said. I'm proud of what I achieved and I can walk around proud 24/7. I've achieved more than 99% of people in this country will ever achieve. Price replied, we've all heard this about the Olympic gold medal before. It was 12 years ago. Well done, great achievement. But it's as if he's running through it in his head all the time, and that might be half his problem. Price says his Olympic medal, which was a bronze, I believe, has been put on a shelf until he's retired and he's out of boxing. He says he's not going to be concentrating on the medal again until he's an old man. It's gone. It's in the past. And I'm hungry to become a successful professional. The amateur stuff just doesn't matter right now. Welterweight contender Mike Jones is hoping to secure the services of Floyd Mayweather Sr. Jones, who was stopped by Randall Bailey in June, is currently trained by Vaughn Jackson. Back on this Lamont Peterson thing again. I have to say they've thrown the whole drugs equation in boxing into total confusion. I have to admit that. Therapeutic use, what does that mean exactly? I mean, because marijuana could be said to be therapeutic, but it's illegal. Therapeutic use, what does that mean? Medicinal, therapeutic, performance enhancing. What difference does it make? If you've got too much of it in your body, what difference does it make? I don't get it. I mean, there's substances in the chemist that you and I can buy, which the boxers can't use. As far as I know, that's how it goes. And if you fall foul of that, you get penalized. But it's not something I'm going to stress my head on, you know? And this doesn't just solely apply to boxing, but people with power or perceived power can obviously make the rules up as they go along. Doesn't matter if it's government, the church, the IBF, the school curriculum, the police. They just make it up as they go along, if that's what they choose to do. There's no rhyme or reason to it. Gavin Reese is still waiting for an opponent for his shot at the vacant WBA lightweight title after #1 contender Richard Abril stalled on signing the contract. Abril indicated he would rather fight Ugandan Sharif Bogare. However, that fight will not be for the vacant title because #3 contender Reese was willing to take on Abril and is ranked higher than Bogare, who was at #4. According to Reese's promoter, Eddie Hearn, the European champion will instead contest the vacant title against the highest available contender. The WBA's #2 is Eucharis Gamboa, who declared he would not fight countryman Abril, but has never indicated he would not fight Reese. What's the matter with boxing these days? Now look, we all get that Vladimir is not going to fight Vitaly and Vitaly is not going to fight Vladimir because they're blood, alright? How are you going to stand in front of the rest of your siblings and family members and your mum and dad after you've tried to put your brother's brains on the sidewalk? You know what I mean? We understand that. But Gamboa saying he won't fight Richard Abril because he's Cuban. No. You're not blood related. You're two professional fighters. Steve Cunningham makes his heavyweight debut against Jason Gavin on the undercard of the Thomas Adamic-Travis Walker fight in September. Brandon Rios makes his light welterweight debut against Mike Alvarado on October the 13th. Kerry Hope has parted ways with Carl Ince because of the strain of having to travel to Bolton to train was getting too much. He's now hooking up with Gary Lockett. Nosinathi Joyi will defend his IBF strawweight title on September the 1st. He takes on Mario Rodriguez in Mexico. On the same night, Monty Miffelane, who is Joyi's fellow countryman, defends his IBF flyweight belt in Panama City against Ricardo Nunes. Rafael Marquez is recovering from the hand injury that postponed his super bantamweight fight with Wilfredo Vasquez Jr. The fight is now rescheduled for October the 6th. On the same night, WBO strawweight boss Moses Fuentes will defend his crown against the veteran Ivan Calderon. Keith Thurman can obviously sell a fight. He can obviously punch very hard. There are two things that his skeptics and his critics cannot deny. But for most untested punchers, the obvious questions are bound to arise, like what's he gonna do when he's faced with either somebody who's slick or has got lateral movement, can use their legs, can take a good shot and return one with interest. You know, just the usual questions. So until they're answered, I'm going to reserve my judgment. Can Junior Witter bring back the glory days when he was WBC light welterweight champion? When he defends his British welterweight championship against Frankie Gavin? Because he's going to need that kind of form to beat Frankie, in my opinion. There's going to be an eliminator for the same title between Matthew Hatton and Lee Purdy. And Frank Warren has secured the rights for the rematch between George Groves and Kenny Anderson, if that fight ever takes place. The 30th anniversary of the death of former WBC featherweight champion Salvador Sanchez took place recently. Sanchez died at the age of 23. There was a meal held in his honor at an amateur boxing event. Amongst the hundreds of people who paid their respects was Juan Laporte, who was a former opponent.
With a right, left, you're toothless. And then you say, God damn, they ruthless.
The Boxing News Super Featherweight rankings goes as so. Takashi Uchiyama is at number 1. Roman Martinez comes in at number 2. Juan Carlos Salgado comes in at number 3. Takahari Ayo comes in at number 4, and Jorge Solis is in at number 5. Argenis Mendez comes in at number 6. Diego Magdaleno comes in at number 7. Juan Carlos Burgos comes in at number 8. And Devis Boshiero comes in at number 9. And at number 10 we have Javier Fortuna. Now Takashi Uchiyama has knocked out Jorge Solis, who is rated at number 5. He's also knocked out Juan Carlos Salgado, who is rated at number 3. So he's a very competent champion. There's no doubt about that. I don't know if you know my rating system. I read the ratings out and then I check the top 5 fighters in the division to see who they fought in the top 10. And he fought 2 men, one rated at number 3 and one rated at number 5. So he's obviously no bum. That's a good champion. He's elevated to number 1 in the list now that Adrian Broner is moving up. Truthfully, Adrian Broner hasn't fought nobody in this list. And I don't know what to make of that. Maybe somebody who's more familiar with fighters at this weight can tell me if that says anything in itself. Jorge Solis hasn't beat nobody in the list. He's in at number 5. Juan Carlos Salgado has beat nobody on the list. And Roman Martinez has beat nobody on the list, and he's at number 2. What I'm realizing with my system, because it's just developing, you know what I mean, it's the early stages, what I'm seeing is the rating system I have in place of seeing who the fighters have beat in the current list. It only really takes account of recent form. But what else should it do? I can't really say that's a flaw. Because yeah, there are certain fighters who have good resumes, but current form, should they be there? Takahiro Ao, who is the WBC champion at the weight, he has beaten Devis Boshiero by split decision over 12 rounds. Boshiero is rated at number 9. Javier Fortuna, who's at number 10. I saw him fight recently on KOTV. His timing was excellent. I have to give him that. His timing was really excellent. And he knew exactly when to punch. And the boy hit hard, man. I mean, No doubt about that.
I'm catching the flashback.
This week, we go back to the week in 1936, where the boxing news were highlighting the Berlin Olympics. Cardiff bantamweight Albert Barnes won his first bout against Dolizal of Czechoslovakia before losing to Mexico's Fidel Ortiz. The fact that Barnes was having severe trouble making the weight and he had to undergo a Turkish bath and intensive massage made his victory more credible, at least in the eyes of boxing news. Dick Shrimpton was involved in a controversial bout with China's Chin Kul-Ti. Shrimpton floored his opponent with a left hook, but one judge reckoned that Dick had punched too quickly after a clinch. The German referee took the unprecedented course of consulting the judge's papers after having counted the Chinese boxer out, and Shrimpton was disqualified. The British trainers pointed out that the rule book, while stipulating a boxer must take one step back from a clinch, did not say how much time must elapse before he could throw a punch. Boxing News said, in the British view, the referee is the sole judge of fair and unfair boxing, and therefore he has no right to allow judges to overrule him after he has given a particular decision, in this case counting out Shrimpton's Chinese opponent. The British protest was upheld, but Dick was eliminated by Norway's Henry Tiller in the next series. In other news, the flyweight champion of the world, Benny Lynch, from Glasgow, had an assault charge against him dropped. This allowed Lynch to go into strict training for his contest against Pat Palmer from London. Who was Lynch alleged to have assaulted? That's what the boxing news readers were left guessing. Jack Kid Berg, the former world light welterweight king and still only 27 years of age, he met Italy's Aldo Spoldi at the Dyckman or Dickman Oval, no homo, in Brooklyn, and went down 3 times before being stopped in round 2. Our New York correspondent Peter Varley called Berg only a shadow of the high-speed fighter known as the Whitechapel Whirlwind, and added, it was such a sad finish for a once top-notch boy. Yet Berg would fight on until 1945 despite this assessment.
The undefeated defending champion of the world, Michael Dynamite Dokes.
When you live your life in the fast lane, as Michael Dokes did, death can come too soon. The former WBA heavyweight champion ravaged by liver cancer died on August the 12th. 2 days after turning 54, the Akron man was one of the superior big men during the maligned 1980s era. His nickname was Dynamite. Sadly, Dokes embraced that decade's habit for excess after tumbling into a world of drugs and alcohol abuse. Born with a winning mix of skill and rapid-fire punching, he was advised by his mother to start boxing after she heard he was fighting on the streets. His successful amateur career would culminate with a National Golden Gloves victory in the year of 1976. When I'm moving and grooving, there ain't nobody in the world who can touch me, is what Dokes told Sports Illustrated after turning professional in that same year. Speed? They ain't seen nothing. I can hit a guy 3 times, and all he can think is somebody has snuck up behind him. 12 months later, a televised exhibition with the then heavyweight champion of the world, Muhammad Ali, demonstrated flashes of that potential. Early in the 1980s, Dokes broke into the world rankings when he outscored Jimmy Young and blasted out Ozzy Ocasio and flattened Britain's John L. Gardner. By 1982, he was the WBA champion when he beat Mike Weaver by stoppage in 63 seconds. The stoppage was considered premature and controversial by most. So the pair then engaged again in an entertaining rematch, which resulted in a 15-round draw. Dokes accepted the challenge of Jerry Coetzee in 1983, but his life outside the ring was spiraling out of control. He trained for the South African on cocaine and Jack Daniels, and it showed in his performance. Dokes was well beaten by Coetzee and stopped in 10 rounds. The warrior within was too weak to withstand the South African. By 1987, he had been found guilty of drug trafficking. He had been in and out of the ring for 33 months, and his career was in tatters. He returned to combat, damaged yet determined, and became a leading contender again after upsetting top prospect James Pritchard. Then came a thrilling 1989 loss to Evander Holyfield, who claims that Dokes had the fastest hands of any man he had faced in the ring. But regardless, in defeat he covered himself in glory, and there was even talk of Dokes fighting Mike Tyson. There's no distractions now. At last I'm at harmony with myself, is what Dokes would say. But this peace did not last long. In 1990, Razor Ruddock scored a gruesome 4th-round KO. The finish was so chilling, Dokes should never have fought again. However, he continued to fight, and after a series of uninspiring victories that illustrated nothing more than his decline, he secured a gift title shot at new champion Riddick Bowe. This was in 1993. Dokes was overweight and his reactions were shot. He was blown away in a round containing his issues with drugs, became near on impossible, and he retired in 1997 after losing 3 of his final 6. His final record was 53 wins, 6 losses, 2 draws. 34 of his victories came by KO. At the turn of the century, Dokes' demons ran amok, and he was sentenced to 10 years in prison for attempted murder, 2nd-degree kidnapping, and intent to commit sexual assault on his then-girlfriend. Dokes was then determined to make amends upon his release. He was paroled in 2008, and after a short spell in Las Vegas, he spent his last years living back in Akron, ultimately consumed by his final battle. Michael Dokes, born in the year of 1958 and deceased in August 2012. So with that, we're going to wrap up this roundup and say peace out. Peace.